Hello, everybody. Welcome to Current Energies, February 2018. Here with me, Jona Bryndis, and our Sacred Self-Healing community. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. All right, it's always wonderful, and this group here is growing with every webinar. So I will, however, unmute all your microphones so that you can control them yourselves. This format here is a discussion format. I'm going to talk a little bit about February energies leading into March energies, and then I would love to hear from you guys how February or, the current collective wave is treating you. It's, of course, never divided into months. That's just our perception of it. So far, looking at 2018 altogether, guys, this is, we're in the middle of a really intense transformation process, and this will continue until 2020, 2024. But the most intensity is right now and for the next 2 years. Okay, and January gave us a little heads up on what to expect. So we had a good spectrum in January, and February now is where we're supposed to refine. Okay, this is a correction month. All right, there's a lot of game changers that will occur this month that already have in some areas, just to mention the crypto, the financial market, things that we will look back to in a couple of years and say, okay, this is when it started, or this is when it really shifted. But also in regards to our personal journeys, things that have been sitting there for the longest time, things that we've been procrastinating or that have sort of weighed on us. This month is the month to, I don't want to say get rid of them, but to resolve them, at least to make plans, on how to bring them to closure. So right now we're in the middle of this refinement process, and refinement always means to mentally kind of assess what is going on and how we can learn from the past experience. So if you've watched the energy update for this week, this was the one of the main energies in there. So the question is not, why is this happening to me? The question is, what can I learn from this? Where is this leading me? And with that, or in order to navigate through this gracefully, we need a flexibility. We need to give ourselves this space to explore. That too came in very strongly this week, and will continue, to really be in this place of understanding that, there are some patterns, there are some, in the micro as in the macro, that are not going that well. But, in order to really work with them, it's not like black and white. So some of what we saw, I think it was in September, October, like really opening ourselves up for the third option, to actually seek for the third option and not to get stuck in this black and white thinking. Whenever you find yourself caught in like either or, like life or death, or, there's only this or nothing, and then that you are caught in your ego perception, that's pretty good rule of thumb, to go by. Then we have the overall theme of energetic and physical integration. And physical integration, remember, is not just sort of the integration of your spiritual being into your body, it's into your practical life. I want to say that these next 2-3 years are going to be a great platform for, new ways of looking at spirituality, like a practical spirituality that is emerging. Something that we at transCODES here have been doing all along. And then the other aspect that is coming in right now is freedom through commitment. You know, it's the um, the art of devotion, the art of devoting myself to something, um, with, you know, practically body, mind, and heart and soul. You know, not just because I said so, or because of a false loyalty, or mm, out of white shadow, or any other of these reasons, but to really commit myself to something, and to allow myself to really be devoted to it. And at that point, you know, when you can tune into devotion, you don't really need to control things anymore. So there's a freedom that comes out of that. Here for the second half of February, what's coming in is you know, the practical aspects in relationships, very much so. So a form of inclusiveness. I don't know how else to name this, but it expresses in relationships maybe in this way, that you make a choice, either to start something new, or to bring something that is no longer needed to closure, and your partner kind of sees this as something scary or something fearful. You know, then the phrase here that comes up for me is, just because this is for me, you know, just because this is good for me doesn't mean that it's against you. So that's what I mean with inclusiveness, to really see yourself, you know, based on self-love and what is best for you, but also to see the macro a bit, you know, like the effect that it has on the other. And for this next week in particular, don't underestimate your partner's inner child aspects, you know, that are there too. So you're not just dealing with your own patterns, you're not just dealing with your partner's patterns. You know, you're dealing with a combination of patterns between and within you guys. Um, Also, what this will lead to, and this is all, you know, in or pointing at sort of a qualitative refinement, as I said earlier, you know, becoming aware of some of the externalizations that you have had in your life and also in your relationship, and to start working on those things. You know, when you can see them, that's when you can begin to work on them, begin to heal them. And you can do this together in a relationship. This doesn't mean that just because you're realizing how codependent you are, for instance, or how codependent your partner is, doesn't mean you have to go into the other extreme. All right, it's something that you can work together on. With this, you know, comes something that I call a qualitative visioning. You know, it's, you guys are familiar with visioning, and some of you are really good at this too. But then there's a problem with the contextualization of what it is that you are seeing or perceiving. And this month will be really good for narrowing this down a bit, you know, and asking questions, going into this inner communication, this, you know, asking your true self, not like yes or no questions, but to show you, you know, to reveal to you certain aspects of what you have difficulties with, like deciding, maybe making choices, or what you need to let go, or how you can approach certain things. So qualitative visioning, not of course fantasizing. This is a coping mechanism. We already know that, and some of us have a really good connection to visioning, so we always need to be a bit more cautious there, you know, to not sort of drift off into la la land, you know. There's nothing wrong with having blissful experiences, but for the task at hand, you know, to be able to discern better, these things don't help you. They just sort of fixate you on a high, you know, and it feels good, and then you feel really bad when you don't feel good anymore. So you want to avoid that. You know, where this is leading, and some of you have shared some of that in the Sky group that we have, is the ability to really tune into yourself and celebrate yourself, even if it sometimes means that you have to go into self-healing more often than you want to, you know. And when I say self-healing, I mean things like dealing with incoming viruses and germs, for instance, incoming sickness. So a lot of us are still dealing with this prolonged flu season. And it really comes down because this virus is actually not a flu virus for most of us, but it doesn't really matter what you call it. It has the characteristics that it keeps on coming back. And so, your system is actually able to handle that. You just need to remind yourself to really go into what is the best for you at this very moment, what you need to do right now, to maintain your energy so that you don't become too susceptible, that you don't become, too rigid. Rigidity can make you susceptible. All right, so that's where the flexibility aspect comes from that I mentioned in the beginning. And here, moving towards the end of February, we'll see, while there's a lot of space for healing and, lovingness also in our families and relationships, we need to pay more attention to those relationship patterns that are really not good for us, for our energy, or for the relationship, or for the kids, for that matter, or whomever is involved. It's a good time to make corrections, and to actually talk about this, and to make plans, to be sort of almost a bit rational about this and say, look, these things are really not good for us, and let's resolve those, or let's stop doing that we already know is not good for us, and come up with a plan, or give ourselves a time frame in which we want to really dedicate ourselves, or devote, if you will, ourselves to working on this together. So there's a togetherness, which is actually really nice. It's not this typical time for breakups here, the end of February. It's more like growing closer together and learning how to approach things with mutual respect. So that's actually really nice. And March then starts a little calmer too, and with a lot of, space for lovingness, with a lot of, a lot more, let's say, balance in things, and deep love. Some may actually find, a partner in that time, like the beginning of March. Cool time. Yeah, so that's for our inner journey, and on the outside, we're going to see a lot more of these scandals. Guys, get used to this now, about assaults, abuse against women and children, and of course the sexual stuff. I talked about this in the energy update last week, not for this week, but for last week. I'm expecting a suicide wave, people committing suicide because they are being found out. This is sort of shadow revelation month. And this won't end actually till the end of the year. This whole sort of pedophilia, Pizzagate, all that, there is a very strong energy right now in uncovering all of that. And with it also, specifically for this month, some scandals around some of the foundations or charities or whatever involved with, good doing, especially for children, or also in regards to certain countries, maybe building schools and stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff that's been uncovered, a lot more than we think there is. It's really muddy down there. And I know we're kind of getting tired of it, but trust me, guys, this is really important, because the overall theme for 2018 really needs that violated healer in us to heal. So there is this, children's energies and mother energies are sort of the carriers of the flame of healing, if you will. And if they get violated, then a whole entire nation or a whole entire collective becomes unable to heal itself. I don't know if this makes sense, but this is the theme for the entire year. So these things have to be uncovered. They need to come out in the open, not maybe in the extreme you know, that everybody gets sued for saying something. No, I'm talking about the real mud, you know, the stuff that happens here in this sort of deep state type of level, and with some of the really powerful realms here amongst us humans. Politically, actually, it may seem a little surprising, but for this month, for the first time, actually, I do see the possibility of a battle somewhere. Now, you guys are from all over the world, so chances are that what I perceive specifically sort of in, you know, I get all kinds of apocalyptic stuff all the time. And to a degree, you know, if you just search for it, you can always find a place on Earth where that is happening. But when it comes in the way it has come in here for me, it usually indicates that this is close to me, you know, close to me. So because my energy is kind of split between three main countries, which is, you know, Iceland, where, you know, where I'm from, in Germany, where I spend a lot of time, and where I also have a lot of friends and connections, and the US, where I'm living right now. So I can't really tell if it's here or there. I have a feeling that it is more US related. And if it is, I mean, whether it's, you know, originating in Germany or in the US, it'll affect the whole world anyway. If something happens in Iceland, it won't affect a lot, except for the financial crash in 2008. That actually, but it wasn't really the cause of the financial crash. It was just a place where it actually played out. Yeah, and earthquakes are still on the menu. So a lot of transformation going on everywhere, and the overall idea here is that this is going to continue. Okay, so there will be different scenes, you know, with the months. And I actually looked at our channeling from February when we did this, you know, on the 1st of January, if you remember this. And there were some cool things that you guys came up with, and I'm actually seeing those again. I totally forgotten about them. So yes, there's a lot of validity to the things that you saw as well. And so all this is sort of narrowing down now as time proceeds. Those are sort of the main energies at the moment that we are dealing with on a collective level. And on a personal level, I would love to hear how you have been dealing so far. Are there, you know, any things that are specifically sticking out for you? Any visions maybe that you have, things that are bothering you right now, or the successes that you can celebrate? So please feel free to share here at this point.
Hello, Jona. Hello, everybody. This is Sebastian.
Hey, Sebastian. Thanks for sharing.
It's as I shared with you, Jona, on our last coaching session. I got that feeling that I'm repeating 2017, like the beginning of 2017, and I know perfectly why it is happening, and we've been talking about that during that coaching session. And there were some unresolved stories over there that are just coming back, and I need to go a little deeper with them and make corrections and adjustments. But I was quite surprised. You know, I've been dealing with that flu story for over a week now. I feel kind of cleared, and with the support of essential oils that I've been studying last year, it was much easier for me to go through that. But there was one very specific thing that really touched me. That from the moment when it started, when I started to have some symptoms, my mind got completely upside down. and it was quite tremendous for me to observe. There were moments where my ego was just almost like a machine gun, just overwhelming amount of stories and things that my ego would come up with, and I was able to observe it. I couldn't react to that. I couldn't do absolutely anything. I was physically completely wiped out. So I felt a little bit like encaged with my ego, just observing its craziness in the most volatile way. And interestingly, once I've passed that threshold of getting to that position that I could do something physically, I was just so weakened.
So worn out by your own mind, right?
Yeah, exactly. I was just so worn out, and they couldn't do anything anyway. So I was just walking like a zombie around my apartment. Couldn't really put a grasp on what is happening, and I felt like I'm hitting bottom rung again, and couldn't really understand what is happening within me. I didn't have any particular contact with society around, so I wasn't necessarily exposed to whatever is happening out there, but whatever was happening within me was fairly enough to go through. And I ended up, that's where I am at right now, that I have a bit of happiness and encouragement within myself, but I realized that I cannot really answer those simplest questions like where I want to go, what I want to do, how I want it. And it's quite interesting. It feels like I'm just standing on that clean slate, looking around. Don't necessarily know where to go or what to do. And my financial part of life is very much on knees. I have there are some options out there. I have just no idea where to look at and what to do with it. It's very interesting moment in my life, to feel that very need to be reliable and to be on my own, and at the same time have no idea of how to really put it together.
Okay, there's a few things you said here, a few different things. First, I want to pick up on the very last thing that you said.
Mm-hmm.
You have this prompting to be on your own, but then at the same time also, how did you say that? At the same time also to connect, right? Something along those lines. Here's very important that not just you, but anyone, because this has something to do with what I just said with the inclusiveness, that you rephrase maybe the word on your own, rephrase that into independent. Because independent doesn't equal aloneness or on your ownness. Okay, that's something that many of us have sort of as a black and white type of thing in us, and it scares us when we go in, when we make a move towards independence. It scares us because there's this belief, this unconscious belief, that it means that we're going to be alone. All right, because we've sort of conditioned ourselves, linguistically to a degree, and also, of course, through all the stories that happen around us, like everybody who's tried to do their own thing, fell down and failed, stuff like that. It's this to avoid this core fear of aloneness. That's a core fear that we all have, okay? That the ego has, really. Because that means we have no support, we have no nothing, we're basically on our own. So I know, Sebastian, that you're bilingual, and so this may not be a correct translation of how you actually mean this. However, even if we're bilingual and we use these words, if we live in a society a culture where we take on these phrases that exist in the culture. We also take on the energy with it. So we use words like independence and liberation instead of on my own, you know, because those are higher vibratory versions of that. And that helps your energy to, you know, just it seems like a technicality, but there's a different energy in it. And so when we think of it, or in our dialogue, you know, correct ourselves, you know, and say, well, okay, it's not about being on my own. It's about liberating myself from the stuff that's holding me back, you know. Then another comment that I wanted to make about you weren't really in touch with other people so much. Yes, because obviously you couldn't work, and your work has to do with a lot of people. But just because you weren't in direct contact with others does not mean that you're not experiencing collective energies. I want to make this very clear.
Sure, especially here in Chicago, where everything is densely populated, and even if I'm at my apartment, I definitely am like in the middle of hundreds of thousands of people around me.
I mean, you literally would have to go to the Himalayas, you know, and sit on a mountain to reduce the majority of and even then you be part of that. Okay, there is the entanglement that is that, you know, that is the basis of all this energy work. You know, it happens regardless of our location in space and time. Okay, so yes, we can reduce some of the direct negative impact through, you know, finding better conditions. Like Jeff and I, we moved from sort of a suburban area, you know, where we had a really nice house and property, but you know, the other houses were way too close and it was packed, you know. And so now we live in a place where it's much less dense populated, and where people have a different attitude. They don't really want to hang out with their neighbors. They're friendly. You know, everybody kind of wants the same. They all, you know, sort of want to, you know, they're very consolidated in that way. So there's a better condition. And then the last thing I wanted to comment on is the specific flu phenomenon, or let's just call it that way, okay? Is something that the way you described is awesome, because that's exactly how it's happening. And I was trying to cover this actually in the energy report. You know, there is a connection between your physical immune system and your energetic immune system. And right now, the energies are coming in. And just so you guys know, February 15th is new moon and partial solar eclipse. Heavy, heavy, heavy mental. Not heavy metal, heavy mental. Okay. So this is exactly how this is happening right now. And yes, I could feel this too. It was like insane. Insane. The stream of, like, your physical immune system goes low, your energy goes low a bit, and bam, you know, there's like the stream of thoughts and fear-inducing pictures and stuff I haven't seen or heard in years, and I'm like, where's this coming from? You know, and this is a reference feeling, guys. This tells you something's going on. That's not yours. Sure, it's using your voice and it's using your issues, you know, because it's your ego responding to it. But the trigger is not yours. So there's something here, you know, that is like seriously attacking your immune system, not just your physical. You will find that an attack on your physical immune system also takes place on the etheric. It takes place on the etheric. How many of you have had severe nightmares right before they got sick? Okay, there's a connection, guys. So don't exclude. You know, I'm trying to break things down for you into like physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, social, and energetic. But they're all connected with another. It's just a variation of the theme each time. So that's actually kind of cool. And the exhaustion, I mean, the part of your description that I really liked, Sebastian, was this exhaustion, you know, like completely exhausted. And in a lot of cases, a lot of people leading to insomnia. So insomnia now, you're sleep deprived on top of everything, you know, and that is then what, you sort of creates that downward spiral. Then you start, you know, you get into this like, I don't care mode, and then you drink less water, and then you eat crap, and a lot of people also had digestive issues. So now you're sort of in the self-preservation, you're just trying to get by, and that sort of, yeah, that makes it even harder. So the discipline or the learning experience here is to go into this place of self-love, self-care, not just regardless, especially now when you feel such things. That's what I mean with space for healing. You need to make space for healing. You need to say to yourself, ooh, shit's coming down. Whether there's a virus going on around you or not, doesn't matter. I need to go into self-healing. I need to really use this space here, like to, go in energetically, physically, self-care. I can always tell that something's up with my energy when I don't want to, drink water, even though I'm thirsty, and when I am too tired to brush my teeth before I go to bed. That's showing me that my self-care, my self-love is kind of going down. So many times I've caught myself, doing it regardless, especially now, because I knew that, this will nag on me tomorrow, oh shoot, you forgot to brush your teeth last night, whatever it is. It can be other things as well. I think you kind of get the gist of that. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Sebastian, for sharing. That was a really cool description of some of these patterns. I want to just let you guys know there's a lot of sharing here. A lot of people have commented while I was introducing the energies for February. I just want to read a few to you. Yes, started dating again after many, many years. Going off into fantasy is my biggest challenge. I'm getting some preparedness hits for earthquakes. Not like the signal for moving yet, but I'm getting, like hits, earthquake hits. Everything you said in regards to relationships, spot on. Using the Sacred Self-Healing Steps 17 and 18 to stay grounded and interrupt the old fantasy program. Very cool. Yes, those are very good steps for this month, steps 17 and 18. Although I do see a move in not too far future. So that was the person who's got the hits on earthquakes. So yes, that, when you live in a place where you kind of have an awkward feeling about maybe something maybe happening here or it's not right, really pay attention to your inner promptings. That doesn't mean that you have to go into panic. And I like how you described this here, Cindy. You'll get the right message at the right time. Okay? You need to trust in that. Things shift and change all the time. So, and there's energetic pockets all over the world, so just because, like, say something is going to happen to the east coast of Australia doesn't mean that everybody, is going to get affected by it. Okay. Same with the northwest of the United States. There are a lot of markers right now, indicating that there's a west coast incidence. So wait this out, trust in your inner feeling, and allow, there's a lot of things, not just in your personal life, in all of our lives, that sometimes need to come to a closure first or need to be resolved first before it is a good time to move. Yes, Heather, a comment. She wants to go to Himalaya now. Okay, me too. Let's go together. Yes, yeah, and a lot of people just confirming a lot of the things. So that's cool. Thank you guys for sharing. Please go ahead and keep sharing here if you want to speak into the microphone. I just wanted to read the comments.
Well, hi everybody. It's Brian.
Hey, Brian.
Hey. I know I've been, since the beginning of the year, I've been up and down and all around the energetic scale. And knowing that the majority of it is collective, but I know, like at work right now, where I've mentioned before, I'm at a place where there's over 80 employees, and a lot of them have been out for the past few weeks, very, very sick. Variations of sinus, flu, colds, things like that, to the point where myself and a few other employees are being joked about by everyone else because we haven't become sick. And I know a couple of weeks ago when it really started happening, like 3, 4 people a day wouldn't show up to work for 4 or 5 days. I took that as a hint to stay present, to keep drinking a lot of water. And I found myself regrounding. Whereas like last year, I got to thinking about it, last year, maybe I think about it maybe a few times a day, like, oh, I need to reground and like that. But now it's triple fold. I mean, it seems like every hour and a half, 2 hours or so, it comes across to me, okay, I have to do some version of regrounding right now. And that's what I found I've been doing, just trying to stay present and go with the flow, so to speak, but using some discernment at the same time.
Yeah, when you're one of the last man standing, I was the last, or I am right now,
Oh,
the
I don't
last
like the
man
sound
standing.
of that one.
That's really kind of awkward because you're like, oh shit, this is probably only going to be a matter of time, and you got to really fight that expectation almost, that who's going to hit you too,
Yeah,
yes.
our building is like really cold inside the part of the warehouse where I work. Whereas here in Southern California or around Los Angeles in the past week or so, we've been experiencing 80-degree weather.
Right.
And so the times that we have 15-minute breaks, a lot of people may stay inside and go into the break room. Well, I head right outside because with the area that I work, there are no windows or anything like that. So I go right outside and take in as much of the outside as I can, regardless of what the weather is. And that for those 15 minutes and come back in and work. And so going back in it from the cold to the heat, to the cold, to the heat like that, a lot of people are giving that the reason why they're coming down with the flu and cold and that stuff. And I'm just observing. I'm trying to stay in the observing mode and not get sucked into it all. Whereas before I would have. I would have thought, yeah, it's not good to go in and out all the time and all that. So
it's really about that, what you said, like if I mean, we all kind of have this inner self healer, that kind of knows what we need, and right now it's more the subtle things. It's not like big shifts that we need to make because it's this like constant attack. So it's more like sleep, drink water, and ground, like just basic maintenance type of things.
well, I
And
know I've been experiencing major insomnia. I mean, major insomnia.
and that's a danger.
Yeah, and so when that started happening is when I, along with everything else, I just started drinking a lot more water because I know in the past, like a few years back, insomnia, I would become despondent and depressed and all that, and that hasn't happened. And I actually kind of use those awake hours to do some reflecting and even meditate and like that. I try to use the hours I'm awake constructively at 2 a.m. or so, but actually I've been kind of getting in the practice of meditating around 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's been interesting, really interesting. And I've had some interesting visions too, and not knowing, just the majority of them, just observing them, because I'm not really sure what's ego based or what's dreamland or like fantasy based and
Mhm.
like that. So, but yeah.
It's also the time right now where there is a lot of sixth chakra, third eye activity going on. There's a distinct difference between when there's a seventh chakra attack or bombardment going on, or when there's a sixth chakra stuff going on. It's not always coming from the outside. So there's also something that is happening within ourselves, which leads us to these more qualitative visions that I mentioned, qualitative visioning, which which is the ability to make connections, to contextualize some of the things that are coming in. And some of the insomnia that people are experiencing right now has to do with that, actually. Of course, those of you who do transmissions here all the time, guys, I mean, you're asking for it, in a good way, but you're working on this, all right? So yes, there's also a lot of stuff going on. I mean, coming in, okay, for you to digest and get used to this. That's all I can say, really. Get used to this, because you are an energetic being, and your channels are wide open. You just need to learn how to discern that information, whether it's like an attack from the outside, such as like fear, uncertainty, and doubt. When that hits the collective, it comes in like a movie almost, right? And you're like, what the? Or when you go in really deep into something and there's something that almost sort of knocks at your door that wants to come in, right? And empirically, this is showing up for people right around this time at night, between 2 and 4 a.m. This is the time where the collective is the least active, regardless of what time zone we are in. So, like when everybody else is in that deep sleep state, then our, etheric, can expand a little more. And when you are awake, I mean, I know a lot of people who set their alarms to 3 o'clock or 3:30 a.m. in order to meditate at that time. That's a really good inner prompting, Brian, to go into meditation. And usually the meditation then leads to the whole system calming down and then being able to go back to sleep, unless, you make that, your lifestyle, and you go to bed, like say at 8:30 or 9 p.m., and you wake
Well,
up.
that's been naturally happening. I never really thought about it till you're talking about it now, but I've always been the kind of guy that went to bed at 11 and got up at 5 or something. But the past few months, I've been going to bed more like 9 o'clock and waking up, like I said, around 2 o'clock or something.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with this. We've got to remember that the conditioning that we have and the belief, that we have to stay up until a certain time or not, or wake up at a certain time. Those are just sort of collective conditionings. We have
Well, that's
8
because
hours of
we're
work.
bombarded by a collective that you have to have at least 8 hours of good sleep to be normal,
Well, that has actually been revised.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. It's actually, I mean, the ideal time for a person is actually 6 hours. 6 hours and a 20-minute nap somewhere during the day. But a lot of the sleep research is showing that whether or not a person actually feels tired, it does not have or has a lot less to do with the number of hours that the person slept than with their overall condition. And people like myself, who wish that the day had 48 hours, have explored this, to the T. And there's, especially when you can meditate and when you know how to recuperate your energy efficiently, then you will find that there's especially if you can get into theta and delta states at will, which are the ones that we usually experience when we deep sleep, which are the ones that are, leading to this sort of recuperation in us or renewal. Then you're like very independent of that. We have biorhythms, and so our digestive system and the absorption of nutrients and all that takes place at certain times. So it's better to sleep at certain times. You have to find out when that is for you. But this whole myth that it has to be 8 hours or that it has to be 6 hours, there's a lot of placebo in that. They've done experiments with people where they've told them that they've slept 8 hours and they were totally fine, they only slept 2, So our sleeping patterns and our well-being patterns, they have a lot to do with our energetic state. And everybody knows this. If you are like going through an emotional crisis or whatever, you have different sleeping patterns. If you're falling in love, you have different sleeping patterns. If you are going through a financial crisis, you have different sleeping patterns. So a lot of that has to do with the energetic state that you're locking into and how well you can manage your energies. So you guys here are self-healers, are learning all these strategies, how to deal with these different states, and therefore become less dependent on these outer frameworks, such as specific times for specific things. And I would encourage you to explore that a bit, to experiment a bit with that. Because there are certain times where when you sleep at certain times, they're more efficient than when you sleep at other times, for instance. So, give yourself some space there and don't go into panic just because you wake up at 3:30. Oh, what? So what? Then you go and meditate a little bit or do something that you've always needed to do instead of, torturing yourself trying to fall back to sleep and going into these mental overdrive cycles. And then there can also be a lot of recuperation in that in-between state, where you're not fully sleeping, but you're going into theta, and there's a lot that happens in your body on a neurotransmitter level in a positive way. And yet you have the feeling that you didn't sleep, that's all mental, to think that you need to have a certain number of hours.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. That's great. I think I have been a lot of times in that theta state. And that's great to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that all of our meditations and music that we provide has a subliminal theta metronome.
Uh-huh.
So, we have been training you guys to exist in that state all along, with every transmission music, with every sacred self-healing meditation, because that's at least a sort of state of research nowadays, that this is a place where, you can disrupt a lot of negative cycles, and physical, emotional, mental, and so forth, because there's a recuperation that is taking place in there. Now, in times of elevated stress, physical stress, emotional stress, or mental stress, or like right now, just the number of germs that are going around, you want to use sleep as means of self-healing. So everything I said right now, counts to like when things are okay, but when there is, stuff going on and you can feel that you're getting like a little low in your energy, then use sleep as part of your self-healing regimen. Yeah, not regiment. Use it. It won't always do the job, but it will at least put your biochemistry at rest. Because when there's a lot of germs flying around that trying to come in, you know, it's like your immune system is working on high alert, which means it needs more water, it needs more sleep, and also more good nutrients, such as vitamin C and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different substances that you can work with, not meds, but substances, that help to increase or support your physical immune system. And there's a lot of people here that are very versed in, natural healing aspects, essential oils, as well as herbs, teas, and supplements that you can take to, to support your physical, in addition to the energetic part. But it's all together. When someone is in a really, really low state, and I think I've talked about this here at some point, then you kind of don't want to heal. You kind of like, oh, you just want to like, you got to catch that moment, because that's usually when you're under highest attack. Like then you have to do something, especially then, when you don't want to, so catch that moment. Question here. Is there a person that would benefit from, is this where a person would benefit from a higher vibratory diet? A person and a person's energy always benefits from a higher vibratory diet. So actually having a higher vibratory diet as a lifestyle, puts your entire physical as well as etheric immune system into a better place to begin with. So higher vibratory diets are something that I recommend for anybody, especially, us empaths and energetically sensitives, because you are more susceptible to things. But in those moments where you go really low, yes, you need to tune into what is, best for, it's I'm being here cautious here, because when you feel really low, we have a tendency to go for comfort foods. So I don't want to say what makes you feel good, because what makes you feel good at this point is not necessarily what is good for you. I do recommend you guys all to educate yourselves on the healing powers of foods. I mean, for real, not just the mainstream media stuff. Feel into foods. They all have a purpose. They all have a resonance. And there are certain types of foods, that that you may not particularly like, but they are things that are really, really good for you at certain times. Like last week we had, when all this coughing started with Jeff, and we were just getting through Rowan being really, really sick. I woke up this morning, I'm like, okay, we got to do French onion soup tonight, because of what I know about onions, and what that does, because you will get more specific info and promptings if you know more about foods. Does that make sense? The more you educate yourself on these things, the more specific your inner guidance will become. One thing is for sure, if you're already feeling like crap, eating crap will just make it double crap. Okay. That's like, sort of duh, So things such as mac and cheese and pizza and donuts and all that, is high carb, high fat, make us feel good for a moment, but then seriously debilitate our immune system. Like what happens, after one donut, your 80% of your immune system is shut down 10 minutes after you ate a donut. I'm not kidding. I was telling this my son one morning on the way to school when he wanted 20 donuts for the class as a snack. And I told him that, and he's like, oh, so if I eat 3 donuts, then my immune system is like 3 times 80% down. I'm like, yes, you're pretty much screwed that day. It takes about 8 to 10 hours, to balance that back out. So while foods such as pizza and mac and cheese, cheese altogether, even chocolate sometimes, can help us to ground our energy. So like a couple of weeks back when we were all like in that floaty state, right? And buzzing and not feeling like all physical at all. It can be good to eat these kind of heavy foods just to sort of come down a bit, to feel your body a bit more. Because the heaviness then is what brings you back into your physical. But when you are starting to feel sick, that would be the opposite. Now, sometimes though, when you're dealing with digestive stuff, and again here, you see it's very differentiated, and you can't, your system can't really digest sort of complex foods, and all the healthy foods are complex foods. Then it's okay to have just pasta, and bread for a night, just to allow your system, your digestive system, to have an easy task with it. So it doesn't have to work too hard, because sometimes when your digestive system is a little off, eating sort of high complex salads and stuff like that can, it doesn't really get digested right, and then it makes it even worse. So, but yes, great question, Heather. High vibratory diet, always good. That's something we all need to sort of make as a lifestyle for ourselves. But then again, don't forget, it's all about 80-20. Okay, it's not about becoming perfect or becoming pure or becoming rigid on this. It's all just about putting your system into a good place. Same with all the self-healing strategies that you are being taught here. They're most of them are precautionary, so that your system is in a good, consolidated, balanced, harmonized place, so that you become less susceptible to outer things affecting you. Thank you for sharing, Brian.
Sure.
Anybody else wants to share? Got like 5 minutes for sharing. While you're thinking about it or not, I'm just going to be talking. One of the things that I noticed talking to people these days is, is boundary work. I mean, boundary work is always important for us empaths, but right now this is coming in with a different connotation or a different aspect to it, and that is respect, self-respect, and respecting others. I guess it's part of what I've talked about, what's coming in overall here for the next 2 weeks. This inclusiveness and going back into mutual exchange. All right. If we want to work things out with others, be it, in a relationship or with our kids or at work, or even sort of, in the greater scale of things, it's important that we regard everything sort of in a more emancipated way. And when we want to move into liberation and independence, like Sebastian shared in the beginning, which is, the overall theme here for this entire year, then we will find out that there's a lot of things that we bump against that have to do with respect, either not feeling respected or not respecting ourselves, or sort of unconsciously not respecting others. that's something that is coming in right now. Just to give you a little sort of heads up here, and we're probably going to be talking about that in the energy update next week. How to work on respect, and the thing that I can suggest to you, because you understand that lingo, is to really go into, seeing others as energetic beings as well, and really connecting with the true self of another person. You can have a conversation with a person, in the physical, blah, 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 in the verbal, and connect with their true self at the same time. And then you will get sometimes contradictory information, can be a little bit of an issue, because sometimes, people are saying one thing and they actually mean another thing. But especially when, it depends on the relationship that, what kind of relationship that is. If it's a work relationship, let it be. But if it's like, say, your lover or your child, then it's very important to go into this incongruence with respect, to see that, okay, there's something maybe that this person cannot see right now. And yet you get a really strong feeling that this is going into a whole different direction as to, as opposed to what the person's talking about, so that you don't sort of force somebody there, but at the same time, insist, and make your own stance, and be super honest. So there's a really thin line between, like really wanting to be honest and direct and truth-based, and respecting. So we do need to respect other people's boundaries sometimes. Some people cannot look at something. They're not ready yet. Some people simply can't. And we have to actually accept their limitations. And some people don't want to. And we have to accept that too. All right? So just as a heads up here for you guys, since you're all energetically sensitive, and what do you do in those moments if the relationship is not important to you? Let it be. Let the other be. If it's important to you, or if it's a long-term thing, if it's something that you really need to work out with this person, or else these patterns that you have with this person keep repeating, then try to really become conscientious of that pattern that is playing out, and how you can maybe shift your attitude towards the other person internally, on a true self level, and actually communicate to them, hey, look, I respect that. But there are things that, affect me or our kids, or, our relationship or whatever, that I cannot live with. So you have to apply self-respect at the same time. So it's a time here right now where respect it really is really showing both aspects: self-respect and respecting the other person's boundaries and limitations. And how, when we violate either one of them, our own self-respect or their respect, how things then go south, and into like the old sort of, negative patterns, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would like to add a few words to that, since I've been working on that story myself. It's quite interesting how sometimes perception of others, that they are either incongruent, or that they are not really there with what they are presenting, let's say verbally. It's quite interesting how the judgment of those people is pretty much the judgment of myself.
Yes.
It's
Nice.
it's a little deeper, and of course it takes a little time to get there. But after all, it has nothing to do with those people.
It may have something to do with the other people, but you are caught in a pattern that sort of basically recalls the negative inner self-talk. Then you internalize it to the other and blame the other for it. you know, that's something where, you know, where your pattern and the relationship pattern, or, you know, how you see the other person is directly linked. So check your attitude about that, you know, because sometimes, you know, we are completely unaware of how we're disrespecting somebody else's space. And sometimes the other is completely unaware how they're disrespecting your space. Okay. And to give that a little more space, and instead of going into this judgment and blame and negative attitude or anger, you know, a lot of us actually run into an issue that they immediately feel attacked, or that they think it's personal, you know. They give the whole thing a bit more space, and really see, okay, well, this, you know, hey, you know, she can really not see this right now, or he can really not see this right now. And then use your empathy, you know, go in there, you know, check, of course, with yourself that you're not externalizing or projecting something, you know, go in and say, hey, you know, let's work on this differently, maybe, you know. Yeah, that's cool. It's cool that you brought that up, Sebastian. Thank you. In relationship with others, it always comes down to us having to check on our own attitude at that moment, and seeing that we have choices. You know, this is the advantage, or the perk of consciousness work, is that you begin to see that you have more choices. You're not locked in. Most of the people that you communicate with probably are locked in, but you are loosening this up. You're liberating yourself from this, and so you'll get, you know, you'll begin to see more options, also in regards to your own reactivity and the conclusions that you come to. So it's a continual, you know, unwinding of that, and once more, you know, there's absolutely no use in going into self-beat up. Like I've said in the beginning here, you know, the whole February is there for correction, for refinement, for learning. What is the learning experience of this? You know, what can I pull out of that? And how can this change my view? And how can my choices be changed through the different view? That's kind of like where all this is going. You know, find the learning experience in what just happened, if it rubs you the wrong way. All right, guys. As always, I could sit here for hours with you guys.
I could sit here and listen to you for hours.
I sometimes wonder, you guys must be so tired of my voice.
No, not at all.
No.
Like, okay. Just a quick shout out here. If you have not done so and you do enjoy this kind of talk, watch those 21 days. I mean, this is like everything. This is like the essence of the sacred self-healing, guys. So if you haven't watched those videos yet, go for it. It's every day is corresponds with the steps. And I'm still cutting the last day, 21 a day. I'm still video editing this. If you want to do a shout out there, because I've asked people to send in, you know, their, you know, like how working with those steps has changed some of their perspective, some of their experiences. Not just the 21 days videos, but also the Sacred Self-Healing and Heart Warrior program. Then do us a favor and send a quick, you know, like, you know, 1-2 sentences that I can cut in there, you know, because it's all about your guys' experience, not so much just the teaching aspect of that, but it is about real people, you know, and practical application. And so if you have the time, I can still get this into the video, you know, what the Sacred Self-Healing program, the Heart Warrior program, and all these videos, you know, and all that this platform here at transCODES, what that has done for you.
Cool.
Yes, and so yes, if you ever have a sleepless night, or you know, want to work on some of these things, there's 15 hours there on YouTube going through this in a very structured manner. So You never feel alone again. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Love
Thank
you
you
guys
so much.
sharing, and it's wonderful. See you next time. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.